Well, here with us in studio right now from PUD number 3, it's Joel Myer. Good morning, sir. How you doing?
Good morning. Doing great. How about you guys?
Morning,
Good.
Joe.
Good to see you. And we have got a very timely conversation to have here, as we've heard reports and are now starting to see the impacts of this. Some spillage over the dams is increasing some rates for PUD3 customers. Give us the backstory on this and how things are progressing.
Okay, well, let's start with a little bit of history on the spill programs in the Columbia River. Back in the 2000s, there was an idea to set up a management plan for the river for its multiple uses, for hydropower, for salmon, for recreation, for navigation up and down the river. And part of that included some extra spilling of water at the time to help salmon get up and down the river as they were heading out to the ocean.
Okay.
And so that's been a part of the management system for some time. A couple of years ago, various environmental groups said, let's see if using more water over the dams will get fish further downstream faster, and we'd love to be able to have you do it. So they took us to court, meaning the Public Utilities, Bonneville Power Administration, et cetera, took us to court to force us to do more water spills. They won in federal court in Portland. We appealed it to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in San Francisco, lost, and knew that if we took it to the U.S. Supreme Court, they probably wouldn't accept it as a case.
Sure.
So basically, it came back to the Pacific Northwest, and the judge ordered the utilities and Bonneville Power Administration to spill extra water over the dams.
Okay.
And so what happened is that starting in April and several times until June, extra water was spilled. And this is an experiment. It's not part of the management program of the river.
Okay.
That experiment showed that the fish got maybe a couple of hours push time down the river from the extra spill. But one of the concerns we had is that as you spill more water, you create gases in the water, become super saturated with gases, and there could be a situation where the fish could die because they would get the bends. They call it, I believe it, gas bubble trauma. And
interesting.
when Northwest River Partners, of which are a part, did some testing on that and checked out some data, they found that almost 17 to 20% of the fish that went over the dams suffered from that gas bubble trauma.
Oh, no.
And so the bottom line on it here, and the reason that we're on the air talking about it, is that there is a cost related to that. Pacific Northwest is the only place in the world where the region itself pays for an endangered species recovery program. Everything else comes from federal allocations from Congress and so forth. But the public power ratepayers for the Pacific Northwest pay into a program that helps recover salmon. And so if you have extra costs in running the Pacific Northwest hydro system, where do you think those extra costs are loaded on?
Sure.
The ratepayers.
Yeah.
Fortunately, Bonneville Power Administration took the $40 million cost, and if you'd like me to explain how that's broken out, I can. They took that $40 million cost, and they did a lot of cuts and reallocation of their budget for the salmon and wildlife program, and cut that down to $10 million. But even at $10 million, that meant $150,000 to people at Mason PUD3.
Wow.
And it also meant extra bucks being paid by folks at Mason PUD1. If you're a Puget Sound Energy customer, a Vista customer, or a private utility, don't pay it. Public utilities pay it.
Wow.
And so the most expensive bill is going to City of Seattle. It's going to be $1 million. The least expensive is going to a irrigation district, which is about $450. But everybody ponies up some money into this experimental spill, and it cost us.
Wow.
So how long is this experiment going to go on for?
Through at least the next 2 or 3 years, if the court upholds it. Now, here's something I think is really important, is that folks see their bills go up and they immediately say that the PUD or my utility just wants the money.
Sure.
Well, think of it like the counties and the cities and their unfunded mandates.
Yeah.
They're charged with doing things, but they don't get the money to do it. We're charged with paying back to Bonneville Power Administration to spend this money. But several congressmen from Washington State and Oregon introduced a bill in the House. It's H.R. 3144, and basically what it says is that this spill can't go on, number one. Second thing that it does is that if you want to remove dams or make changes to the system, it has to be congressional action. Considering how active Congress has been in the last couple of years,
Right.
I think that's a pretty good bet that congressional action wouldn't take place on those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
It passed out of the House relatively well. It's now in the Senate. And so what we've been encouraging our customers to do is to call our U.S. senators, that would be Murray and Cantwell, and let them know whether or not they want that spill to continue or to support this House Resolution 3144. We do, and we hope that our customers would as well.
What does it see on the bills per customer in Mason PUD3?
Good point. PUD3, we're looking at about $1.30 per month over the next 4 months. And then next year, if this spill is in place again, it'd be about the same amount, I'm thinking, because I'm concerned that Bonneville Power Administration may not be able to, once again, find cuts like they did this year to reduce the impacts on customers. So our opportunity is to tell folks that have control over this thing, meaning Congress, the concerns the region has. Because the main benefit, competitive advantage that Mason County and Pacific Northwest has over any other place in the country is the cost of our electricity. If you want to go to New York, 20 cents a kilowatt hour. Hawaii, 38 cents a kilowatt hour. Here, it's 8 cents a kilowatt hour, and the state average, the national average is about 12 cents a kilowatt hour.
Wow. Wow.
And it's clean energy too. That's a really interesting point, I think, that wasn't taken into account on this thing. If you're not generating electricity by spilling extra water, those utilities that need power to feed their customers still need that power.
Yeah.
Right.
It's got to come from somewhere.
Yes. So Bonneville Power Administration will go out on the market and they'll buy power. God knows where it comes from, but chances are really good that a good percentage of the power they buy has fossil fuels as a part of the mix. The renewable energy that they get from the dams has zero fossil carbon emissions. So you're trading clean energy in an experiment for energy that probably has fossil fuel mix into it to replace it. It's one of those things that you kind of shake your head and go, did you look
Right.
at this?
Talk to me about the support for this politically. I know Senators Cantwell and Murray are Democrats, and environmental issues often lean on the Democratic side, but do you have folks from both sides of the aisle speaking up towards this to get these things changed, or at least have more people look at them? Or
In the House, there were a number of Democratic representatives from the Pacific Northwest delegation that jumped on board for this House resolution. In the Senate, it's probably going to be a little bit more difficult because there are concerns from the two offices I mentioned about setting a precedence by Congress, setting boundaries as to what could be done in the river, and trying to override a legal decision from a judge. So there are concerns there, but I think that if our representatives hear it enough, that they know that their customers are having, our customers, meaning all public power customers in the region, are having some pain from this issue, and it's costing money.
Yeah.
And it's not just an economic advantage. It's, if your bill goes up, what don't you buy? Or what economic impact does it have that would not be there otherwise? So there are concerns there, and that's why we're asking folks to contact the delegation.
And the purpose of this was to help the fish returning upriver get there faster,
Going downriver.
going
Yeah.
downriver. So you think that the spillover is helping give them a little push?
That's what the idea was for the experiment. Keep coming back, this is an experiment.
Yeah.
It wasn't based on the science, which is what set up the plan for running the river for all these different uses.
And why do they need to be pushed downriver faster?
Get
What's
them
the
out
point of
to
that?
the ocean more quickly, their survival supposedly is better.
Oh, I see.
Now,
Okay.
here's-
Hours is a real factor. I mean,
I don't know if that is a good number or if it's a bad number. It is the number
Yeah.
that's out there.
Right.
I think that one of the things to really keep in mind that there have been a lot of changes to the way that dams are operated for fish. For example, I mentioned earlier, there are increased spills occurring during other parts of the year as part of the management plan of the river. And because of those spills, not as much electricity is being generated in the Columbia River system as did in the past.
Sure.
So that's going on there. But on the other hand, the survival rate at the dams going down the river is between 95 and 98% of all the fish that go through the dams.
Wow.
Which is pretty darn good. Of course, it compounds as you go
Is
down the
that
river.
with this experiment?
Without this experiment. So I'll use an example, and this is Chelan PUD. They spent a large amount of money building a fish passage structure that collects fish at one side of the dam. They go in through a tube and they get shot out into the river about a quarter of a mile further down. Gets them through so they don't go through the turbines, gets them downriver faster. It works well. Grant PUD has done something similar. So there is work to increase the efficiency and the survivability of salmon as they move downriver at a very high cost. But we have to keep in mind, with those big dams come big responsibilities for probably one of the most iconic animals in the Pacific Northwest, and that's salmon.
All right.
And so the responsibility is there to make sure that the salmon survive. Some little numbers I want to throw out here really quickly. When the first federal dam was built on the Columbia River, the Grand Coulee Dam, 1937 is when it started operation. 1938 is when they started counting fish. Prior to that, salmon almost were driven to extinction by canneries along the Columbia River. They were churning out 26 million pounds of salmon a year.
Oh, my.
From 1900 to about 1920.
Wow.
Just basically sucking those fish out of the river, putting them in cans and sending them wherever.
Wow.
When Bonneville Dam was put in, the first count showed 500,000 fish returning. In about 2004, 2005, the public power folks started spending a lot more money on fish because of the responsibility under that new plan that I was talking about. And we're spending about $750 million with a B dollars every year on average since then. And in the last 10 years, the return of salmon has been around the 2 million to 2.7 million range.
Wow.
So when you have folks say the river is bereft of salmon right now, we're seeing more salmon in the river now than we did back in the 30s.
Wow.
Which is, I think, a testament to coming together and investing in salmon recovery. So it's working. And I think that people need to know that their investment is working. Every bill that a customer for a public power utility in the Pacific Northwest pays, about 14% of their bill goes towards fish and wildlife programs other than generation of electricity. So when you have folks saying everybody in the Northwest should kick in, public power already is and has been.
Wow.
Joel Myer from PUD3.
That's so cool.
And so folks are encouraged to contact their lawmakers. The House side's already done, so contact the senators as they get ready to kind of follow this bill along. Very nice. Joel, good to see you. Thanks for the information.
Yeah, I learned something new today.
You have a good one.